Oh, hi. Teleport.
Oh, hi, I'm Marc, an art teacher and professional artist, and in today's video I'm going to teach you how to paint something like this. Oh, it's so sunny outside today. Let's get started. Alright, today's tutorial will be more of a follow along than usual, at least. Kind of a Bob Ross-esque video. There are so many ways to tackle environment art, and this week we'll be painting environments, but starting from a 3D blockout image. Not unlike what environment concept artists would do in a game or film studio. Now, for you to follow along, we'll all need to be starting from the same point, so I've pre-rendered some images, basically the same scene with different light setup, and those are all images that you can download in the top right corner of the screen or down in the description below. So I've added them to the tutorial practice file bundle that I have on my QBrush store to download for free. So of course, if you had the bundle already, just go ahead and grab the new file. So of course, these are it. As you can see, very rough, and I've rendered 4 different light setups, like I said, all of which looked inspiring to me. But I think this one right here works great for the demo, so this is going to be my pick. We'll split the process in 6 parts today, as follows. First, we'll want to identify the light sources. In this case, let's go ahead and do that right now. So to do that, we'll always want to look at the highlights, where the highlights are, and where the shadows are, if any. If we look at this scene right here, you can see we have a big shadow here cast on this little structure there, and that would be as a result of those peaks here in the cliff casting shadow on that other shape. Now from this we can kind of trace a line, and this should give us the approximate angle of the light. And well, of course, if we can see a shadow here and we can see the highlights there, it means that the light's not coming from behind this shape. If the shadow is cast here, it means that the light is going towards that shape, and we can see that angle here is pretty consistent. You know, if we look at this little thing here, slight change of angle there. So maybe the bump for this one here was more like a bump on the mountain, but behind here something we can't see. In that case, that would make more sense. And same idea here, like this peak right there would cast shadow on this part. So this is approximately the angle of our light in that case. In this case here, a little more simple, I think, which is why also I chose this one for the demo. But basically here we're going to have pretty much like a top-down light coming, if anything, slightly from behind this shape here. And by the way, these little bits here that are sticking out of the rock facade, those are just reference points. So basically these two here are on the same level, parallel horizontally. All of these are on the same level, and all of these are on the same level. So I'm not going to be using a grid today, perspective grid. But at the same time, what we'll be doing here is pretty organic, mostly nature, and so you shouldn't have to worry about the perspective too much. Anyways, that's number 1. Second part here will be tackling the sketch. So basically slapping a new layer on here and going to town with details, turning this loose block out into something that looks a little bit more like a drawing. That looks like something. Then from there, before we move on to painting, we'll do a couple color adjustments. Then step number 4 will be painting the sky. Then number 5 will be painting the rest of the environment. And the final step will be the final polish. So I've split those into chapters for the video, so feel free to jump to any of these if you're only partially interested. Yeah, I highly encourage you to follow along as best as you can, and if you do end up creating something cool as a result, I'll be featuring a few in a future video and on my social media accounts as well. So if you want me to spot it, just use the hashtag MBYouTube, just in one word, when you post it on social. So I've been working on my sketch a little bit here, and as you saw, I always like to start with the big pieces, the main parts of the illustration. In this case, those rocks were kind of shaped like stairs, so I decided to draw a little path leading up to a house. Obviously, this could be anything. The entire wall facade could be a sprawling sci-fi city. And that red structure could be some sort of energy generator. So many possibilities. In my case here, I decided to go with something that could fit within the world of Chroma Islands, which is just my personal project. But I already have a lot of context, especially when it comes to the flora of the environment. Yeah, anyways, once you're done with the first big details, figuring out kind of the main layout of the environment. Then, well, it's time to decorate the place. While at this step, I like to not focus too much on the shape and details, and really more focus on the placement of the different plants, rocks, anything that's going to fit in the environment, and basically try to place them in a way that would make some sort of sense. And of course, as usual, if you don't have any ideas for what to draw, what to populate this environment with, look up online. Find some environments that have a lot of rocks like this, and well, see what else there is. Things like what those rock formations should look like, where all the different plants normally grow, the variety of the plants. Are they cold weather plants, warm weather plants? Just because we're starting from a 3D blockout doesn't mean you shouldn't use references. Always use references. All right. Now we're at the step where we get to change the colors a little bit if you want to. So let's say you were going for something that's really humid and you wanted a lot of like blue water particles in the atmosphere and the air. Kind of like an overall change. That's a great time to do that. If you want something to look maybe a little bit more dry, like it's in a desert, then maybe making everything a little bit more yellow might do it. In my case, I only added a little bit of blue glow towards the top of the stairs to suggest just a little bit of atmospheric perspective. All right, and then next up are the clouds, of course. But right before I talk a little bit more about how to paint those, let's talk about values real quick. And the main thing that you need to keep in mind here when working with values is that the range of values that you'll be playing around with, in most cases, will depend on the depth of the illustration. Basically, all you got to remember is that everything that's closer to the camera, closer to us, the viewer, in the foreground, will have a broader value range. Dark blacks, whites. But as we make our way towards the back of the scene, we start to lose those darker values. Everything tends to get wider and wider, aka you're going to have more contrast in the foreground, less contrast in the background. All right, then I just wanted to take a couple seconds to explain kind of my thought process behind drawing clouds. And really, this is it right here. I always think of clouds as a bunch of spheres, small and big ones, all kind of clustered up. And so there you have the breakdown. Of course, we're going to shade that sphere here based on our light setup, right? So in my case, the light's coming from the top of the scene. And so the top of my sphere is going to be the brightest. And we're going to have shadows underneath. You can duplicate that same sphere and then blur it out just a little bit to give us a cool looking clouds. And well, yeah, once done, that's kind of what it looks like. So my sphere is here a little bit more fuzzy. Of course, you can shape it any way that you like, focusing on big cumulonimbus clouds here, big and chunky. And from there, we're ready to move on to the next step, painting this environment. Now, as usual, we're not going to be focusing on details at all at the beginning. All we're trying to do here is kind of match what we had in the line art. So what I like to do is bring back my line art to 100% or close to that so we can see it very clearly on top of the stack of layers. And basically we'll be color picking and painting, trying to adjust the 3D blockout to our line art as best as possible. What's super cool with starting with a 3D blockout is that we already have a lot of information in the scene. If you're wondering what the color of the shadow should look like on the side of the cliff, you don't need to wonder about that. Just need to find a shadow in there, color pick it. Easy. Now, once the scene kind of matches what the sketch was initially, again, very rough, we're not focusing on details yet, then I like to move on to the vegetation and basically tackle the environment in layers that way. Almost as if we're dressing up somebody. Rock structures first, then bigger plants, and then smaller details. And, well, an environment like this might seem a little bit overwhelming, but again, if you break it down, it's actually quite simple because, well, yeah, as you can see here are my ingredients. Almost like rules for the environment. So here, every time we're going to have the top of a rock, we're going to have a little bit of moss on top. Smaller bushes are going to look like that. Then maybe here's some more like dry bushes, almost like fan shaped, just something that has a little bit more texture maybe. Then we have some nice lush leaves for our bigger plants, and then some standalone plants like this, and that's it. So I'll just be basically copy pasting those all over the place. It's as simple as that. Now, as I'm working on the building here, a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to the colors. Of course, I always try to find a cool balance in colors, so warm colors versus cool colors. Oh, and by the way, if you don't know how to tackle colors, you're in luck. I have another video tutorial on that exact topic. You can find the link for that in the top right corner of the screen here or down in the description below. And here, as we can observe, I decided to go with a very warm color, very exciting color for my focal point, hopefully grabbing your attention right away as you lay eyes for the first time on the painting. And of course, here's just a quick note, but making sure that I shade my plants or everything else that I draw the same way that my environment is lit. Top, down, light. And now with the smaller details painted in, like a little bit more moss around the base of the rocks and maybe around areas where more water would accumulate, I think I'm in a good spot to move on to the final details. Basically what I want at this point is for this painting to look good as a thumbnail only. Of course, if we zoom in, it's going to look like poo-poo, but it looks kind of cool in the navigator here in the top right in Photoshop. So let's move on to the final step and well, detail further everything that we have already. So if we hide the line art, I think it holds up pretty good. So let's get rid of that line art completely. And then as you can see here, those little bushes are just basically those same ingredients that I just literally copy pasted a bunch of times. I did so for these, and now I'll just do the same for the rest. And the main thing that we should be keeping in mind here is really the values / the contrast. So making sure that we have a little bit more contrast up close and slightly desaturate and reduce the contrast with distance. Now things will speed up a little bit here as I wrap up my polish pass, but as you've seen me throughout this whole process, I didn't zoom in a whole lot. That's something that I highly recommend, that you don't zoom in, because up until now we really haven't focused on the smaller details. It's only been big details and medium-sized details, but now is a good time to start zooming in and really get in there and render all those textures, clean up our lines, clean up our brushwork, and apply the final touches to our beautiful environment. So as I said at the beginning, that pretty much wraps up the process. And yes, that is in fact how a lot of professional environment artists will paint their environments. It's very rare that you'll start from scratch, at least when working in a studio where time is money. So not only is it something that professionals do as well, but now it's something that you can do too. Now, of course, this is a short YouTube video. There's just so much that I can show in 10-15 minutes. I cover environments a ton more in my art school program, but I hope it was still somewhat helpful to see the steps, and I'm super excited to see your own version. Of course, when I said to follow along, I didn't mean to do this exact illustration. Hopefully it'll be something different, and I'm super excited to see what that might look like. So, of course, make sure that you also download the tutorial files, and I'll actually just upload the entire PSD here that I did along with it. So go ahead and download those files, link in the top right corner of the screen and down in the description below. But wait, there's more. But yeah, you can also download one of my brush sets for free, and you'll find the link for that down below as well. So I hope that you liked this painting recipe. Don't forget to show me yours if you end up trying as well. I think the painting's in a good spot right now for me to stop. Of course, I could keep rendering this forever, but ain't nobody got time for that. If you liked the video, or if you learned something, or if you grabbed my brushes, in any scenario, you must click the like button. And make sure that you're subscribed and that your entire family is subscribed, even your pets. Because as usual, every single Friday, I release a new tutorial video for free. And next week's topic will be